I'm Joel Stashenko, Chairman of the Board of Substance Abuse Information Resources, SAIR. COVID-19 changed the way people acted and interacted, the way they worked and they played. And while vaccines have brought back a semblance of life as we used to know it, they haven't restored things to how they were before March 2020. Things may never quite return to what we used to think of as normal. We at SAIR think the pandemic demonstrated the need for all people to give a hug and to get a hug. HUG stands for hope, understanding, and guidance. And while we have used it to describe a way to help people recover from alcohol and drug misuse, COVID-19 showed us that virtually everyone faces danger if they become too isolated and disconnected emotionally from other people. Just as we at SAIR think education about substance misuse can help prevent people from developing problems with alcohol and drugs, we've also come to believe that staying connected with others is our best vaccine against mental and behavioral health illnesses. In this conversation, SAIR founder Greg Spencer stresses that being connected applies to everyone who wants to stay mentally healthy, not just those at risk of alcohol and drug misuse.
It was very obvious that many of the tools that we were using to fight the substance abuse could be and should be used by people, although they weren't addicted or didn't have alcohol or drug problems, were having the same mental health problems.
When did it occur to you that there were similarities between people who had problems with alcohol and drugs and people who were forced to isolate because of the pandemic?
I think one of the things was I was so used to, over the years, being a clinician and a counselor, of when I met clients for the first time and they came in, I always had to start off by doing a treatment plan for them and ask them a lot of questions about what was going on in their lives. And when I was doing that, I could do this right from, I've done so many of them, and I'm taking a look at this and I'm saying these are the same things that these people are dealing with that I was getting back from the alcoholics and the addicts or the people who were struggling. And I'm saying to myself, it's the same thing. What are your problems that you're dealing with? And some of them are financial. You know, you were laid off from a job. Your business is being threatened. You don't have money. You don't have income enough to pay your bills. Your wife has to stop working because she's got to take care of the kids. These were all issues that were triggers in many cases for alcoholics and addicts to drink or drug, or the results of somebody's drinking and drugging creating those kind of problems where somebody gets fired from a job because of what they've done, or they've got health problems, and as opposed to having the virus, somebody might have a heart attack because of drinking, or get in an automobile accident while they're drunk and end up in the hospital. I guess it's the same way with alcohol and drugs, is we know that people out there need to get educated about what their options are, about connecting with other people. For example, Alcoholics Anonymous is a very, is probably the number one program at this stage of the game, because it keeps you connected with other people who have got the same issues or very similar issues. And it's what works best for most. You know, I've heard that many times over the years, and I know it for my own personal fact. I've run some statistics of my own, and for 37 years, I've been to X number of meetings and I've seen X number of clients, and I can realistically say I've got tens of thousands of stories I've heard, and I know what I'm talking about. I know what works for most people, and that's what we want to pass on. And it can get frustrating sometimes when you say, well, I'll do it some other time. And it's almost like people now saying the same thing about the vaccine. Well, I don't need it right now. and when the time comes when you need it, it's too late. You've already got the virus. And that's the same way that we struggle with those things with addiction. Our goal at SAIR with the HUG program is to prevent and do early intervention on people so that they don't progress to the point where they become addicted, where things get so bad that it's out of control. And we do that through education. We do that by doing outreach. So I think that's really where we're reaching out to you people out there and saying, we've got answers for you. We've got an encyclopedia of knowledge right on our website. All you got to do is at your fingertips. So,
isn't it true that in an odd way that the pandemic may give some people firsthand insight into what we've been talking about with substance abuse for all these years, meaning that people who have alcohol and drug issues, generally speaking, are isolated from other people, and they've lost the ability to kind of communicate and to be members of society. And in a way, didn't everybody become like that for a time because of the pandemic, that they couldn't really interact with other people like they wanted to, and maybe it gave them a taste of what alcoholics and drug abusers go through with those feelings of isolation and feelings of not being connected with other people.
That's a great observation. Yeah, I never looked at it that way, but you're right. The people, and when you get into that state, it's almost like the momentum is going away from being around people when you get stuck out there, and now you start feeling sorry for yourself, or you start looking at the negative side of things. And we need those hugs. We need that hope to keep us going, to take the next step forward. Because if we don't and we start sliding backwards, the momentum's going in the wrong direction. And that's when problems really occur. And we know for a fact that there's been a tremendous increase in alcohol consumption and problems, and that with booze, that there's been more suicides, there's been more overdoses. It's really taken its toll on our portion of the field, which is substance abuse and addiction. It's hurt a lot, and yet we want to be able to use that vaccine that we're talking about, that education, so we can stop this from happening. But you have to participate. You have a personal responsibility. We're giving you the vaccine. You got to give us your arm so we can put it in there. Or your brain is actually what we're going after, because that's where the education goes into information. And then it'll go into your mind, and then the next thing you know, we're coming out of it, and we're going to be okay. But I know there's a lot of people out there right now who are still suffering because of consequences. Maybe they still don't have jobs, or they've had to declare bankruptcy, or their kids are struggling mentally because of withdrawal from this. And they say that the ages of 14 and 19 are the ages of the population, the demographics, where most people were damaged and were treated for anxiety and depression and stress. And it wasn't, the older people, or it wasn't the little kids. It was those 14, I think, to 19, it was 15 to 19-year-olds. That was where there's the most damage has occurred, mentally and emotionally. So those people need to be, who are hurting, those kids, those youngsters, those whatever we want to call them, adolescents. We want to get them connected, and we want them to connect with each other, because that's what works the best. For anybody out there who doesn't know this, if you can get with your peers and you can get with people in many cases around your age or with common interests. Boy, it's a great way to hook up if you can do that. Parents have got the greatest influence on their kids up through 16, 18 years old, even with, and that's why you want to get them educated, get their brains working in such a way that when the peer pressure comes up when you're 14 and 15, you want to have already taken the brain and given it information that says, here's how you want to think about things. Here's how you want to treat it when your friends come up to you and say, hey, we're going to go out and we want to take, I got some pills. You will warn them and you advise them and you talk to them about it, that isn't an option for you. And it doesn't work with everybody, but it can work with a lot of kids. They say that's one of the things when you talk to the younger people about that, they'll say, you know something, there's a lot of things my parents didn't have a clue about, but you know something, I listened to them and they really helped me in a lot of ways. And hopefully they're a power of example about what not to do. Unfortunately, you know, when you're growing up in one of those crazy alcoholic families, like some people I know when I look in the mirror.
But this comes back to your idea of a vaccine, though. That education is a vaccine that people can rely on having information in their brains when that moment comes, as you mentioned, when peer pressure for kids becomes very strong, for instance, to deter them from dangerous behavior.
Actually, when we put that information in, that information becomes the antibodies. You know, that becomes the thing that's going to fight off the other information when it comes in, hopefully. And we'll keep control of the mind in a proper way rather than let somebody come in and hijack it about using alcohol or drugs, or worse yet, by using the alcohol and drugs. Because one of the big problems is the stuff that gets you hooked. For many brains, the response is very, very positive initially. And that's why you get hooked. It's really good initially. And some people will try it and they'll say, yeah, good. And then when the consequences come, they'll say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to watch it. But if you're predisposed and you've got those genes and you've got, and it responds to your brain in such a way that you love it, all you got to do is, go to a 12-step meeting. AA in particular is what I think of. And you're going to hear your story over and over and over again. We'll go to a meeting and you're sitting there and you're hearing somebody telling a horror story, and as you're sitting there, you're listening to them and you feel so bad. And then they'll say something and next thing you know, you're on the floor rolling around, you're laughing so hard. And you have to experience that. But you have to know that you never have to be alone again. That's one of my sayings that I heard when I first came around, and I've always tried to pass on. You do not have to do this alone. If you are struggling, let us help you. That's why Joel and I are doing what we're doing.